we all have this extraordinary innate power of one, which means that we can decide, yes, this is unacceptable, I'm not going to go along with it. I'm going to do my utmost to counter it as best as I can.
Hi, I'm Donna.
And I'm Di. We are the Double Ds, and welcome to the Discovery Diaries.
We acknowledge the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of the land on which we are recording this podcast. We pay our respects to the elders, past and present, and acknowledge their spiritual connection to family and storytelling. Well, Di, had an incredible experience. I went to a 90th birthday party. Lawrence Brown, who's on a previous episode of the Double Ds.
Remember Lawrence and his tartan jacket?
Yes, and so Lawrence did skydiving for his 90th birthday.
As you do.
Yes, and afterwards we went to a winery and I sat next to a 92-year-old at the lunch. His name's Andrew Steiner. He was so keen to come on our podcast. So I organised to go to his house in the Adelaide foothills and we spent an incredible time together. He is a famous sculptor. So his house was full of wooden sculptures and artworks that he's done over his lifetime. The main reason that he wanted me to interview him is that he was in the Holocaust during World War II. His family is Jewish and he spent a lot of World War II in hiding in Hungary, and he lost around 12 members of his immediate family. So that's what he wanted to talk about with me, and it's a very, very powerful episode. He later moved to Adelaide in Australia in 1948 with his parents and his sister. So we spent an amazing time, and I hope you enjoy the episode as much as I did meeting and filming Andrew.
And so, Donna, was it the first time he'd shared his story sort of in a public way?
Well, no, because one of his mission in life is to share the stories of the Holocaust, and he has actually, since 1990, been going around to the secondary and tertiary education places in South Australia and been sharing his own personal story and other stories of the Holocaust. And in 2020, he was instrumental in founding the Holocaust Museum in Adelaide and the Andrew Steiner Education Centre.
Amazing. Really looking forward to that one.
I hope you enjoy it. Andrew, it's fantastic to meet with you and have this discussion.
Yes, Donna, I truly appreciate it, and thank you for this opportunity. And just a brief introduction. I was born in Budapest in 1933, and my immediate family, my parents and my sister Judy, myself, we survived the entire war in Budapest. So it's unusual in a sense, and we were very, very fortunate. We have lost 11 close members of my family, and essentially we could have and should have migrated in 1939 because we had all the documents, but we just didn't manage to make it then. So we had this enriching Holocaust experience, and as a consequence of that, I as an eyewitness, much later decided to bear witness. Currently, around the world, various surveys have confirmed that almost uniformly 50% of the people have never heard of the Holocaust.
Wow.
And this is, of course, still within living memory. And roughly about 80 years after this most horrible event that has ever really been perpetrated by man against fellow man.
It's that's why I'm so pleased to be able to talk with you today, and it's really interesting that up to 50% of people have never heard of the Holocaust. It'd be great if we could go through in a little bit more detail about the Holocaust. So the Holocaust was in World War II, and it was Nazi Germany, the Nazis, and they had a policy. The policy was about Jewish people. They wanted to, what was their policy?
Well,
Jewish people?
the Nazi regime had a lot of perceived enemies, so they were mistreated at various levels, but very significantly, only the Jewish people were selected to be totally exterminated from the face of the earth. So, yes, there were many groups of victims, various levels, but we were the only ones that they planned to, and the significant level succeeded with this mass automated conveyor belt slaughtering, murdering innocent people. The only reason for it was that they happened to be Jewish.
Yes. And
They had no real infringements against law. They did nothing wrong. And almost in every case, these victims who selected to be victims were absolutely, totally patriotic, loyal, proud citizens of their nations. In our case, we were probably more Hungarians than the Hungarians themselves.
yes.
And we were very, very proud and happy and loyal. In the case of my father, he served during the First World War as a highly decorated officer, spent 9 years in Siberia as a prisoner of war.
That was in World War One.
Didn't mean anything
Yeah.
because with the Second World War, we became the targeted people who were compelled to wear yellow stars. And of course, with those yellow stars, we were visible from 2 blocks away. And anybody everybody could do anything to us with absolute impunity. And of course, it was encouraged by the government very much. Now, this wearing of the yellow star became compulsory. Not wearing a yellow star could result in summary execution.
So that was the Star of David, wasn't it?
Yes.
And this policy came through in every country where the Nazis were in charge at the time during World War II. Is that right?
Yes, with minor variations, like in some countries they had within the Star of David, the yellow star, they also had the local word for Jew. In other countries they had armbands, but it was slightly varied differentiation, but essentially the aim was exactly the same: identifying, targeting, and then, of course, in conjunction with that, we have had countless, hundreds, thousands of edicts which we had to follow. And
what would be an example of an edict? I remember you did mention something about curfews.
Yes, well, that's an edict. And another major one was the establishment of yellow star houses.
Right.
Nowadays, yellow star houses had a huge poster, something like an A2 size, which is about this big, black background, and with the yellow Star of David. And that had to be affixed at the entrance of these yellow star houses, which the authorities declared and decided which house had to be. In our case, our own villa became one of these yellow star houses, and only Jewish people were allowed to live there. So family members on my father's side of the family moved in. So we had 4 families. Each family had 1 room. Each 2 families shared common kitchen and bathroom. Some people might think, especially here, the majority of people, even children, have their own rooms. They might think, oh, that's pretty tough. All these are relative. Now, it was absolute luxury, comparatively speaking, because in a ghetto situation, to have 60 people in 1 room was not unusual. In a concentration camp, unimaginable, incomprehensible horrors. So having that space to ourselves was fine. We all got on very, very well. So within the 4 families, we had initially 6 cousins, and there was never any fight or disagreements. One of the cousins, Joseph, was just months older than myself, so we had a very long association. We went to the same Jewish primary school during some years. It was a 4-year period for primary school, 39 till 43. And there might have been a couple of years when we as cousins were sitting side by side because the tables and benches were designed for 2 people.
What were you all thinking about at that time? Were you worried that everyone was, being forced to wear Stars of David and being discriminated against and having to live in these houses? Were you worried that more things were going to happen? And
look, the truth is that we just did what we had to do.
Yes.
And within my family and within the extended family, there was never any discussion at all about what was happening.
Yeah.
And nor did we have any discussions afterwards. It was just accepted. That was what we were forced to do, and there was no real alternative. The majority of the most horrendous experiences were shared by my parents and Sister Judy and myself. We never discussed those either, and each of us dealt with those traumatic experiences in our own individual way.
how did you just sort of thought about it yourself? And
I can't honestly say whether there was a great deal of personal thinking or reflection about it.
it's just survival every day.
On the 15th of October 1944, the local Nazi group called Arrow Cross usurped power from Admiral Horthy, who was till then the self-appointed regent of Hungary.
Right.
So this happened on the 16th, because on the 15th, Admiral Horthy pulled out from the alliance with Germany. He could see that the war was already very much lost, and he thought he could negotiate some kind of deal for the Hungarians from the Allied forces. But, of course, Germany didn't want that, nor did these Hungarian Nazis, the Arrow Cross. So on the dawn of the 16th, they came around at dawn and kicking the front entrance and screaming out, "Open up," or we knocked the door down. So my father opened the entrance, and then they just pushed him away. And all of us, at that stage, with the extra cousin as well, all of us were lined up in the courtyard with our hands raised and waiting to be executed. One of my uncles asked the Arrow Cross thugs to have the children's eyes covered, but that didn't happen. And I'm not sure whether that sort of thing makes a significant difference or not. We were told to be quiet. We were told to keep our hands up. And I was standing next to my mother, and I just whispered to her what's going to happen. So she whispered back, "Nothing." So for a boy of 11, it's all it's needed. Assurance from mother, but what can go wrong? So that was sufficient. Took indeterminable, long time before they allowed us to lower our hands. And of course, another group of these Arrow Cross crews came offering their help to the first lot, but they were sent away because this group said they had everything under control. They didn't need any help. What I have found out subsequently, that the first group was okay, but the one which came to assist, in fact, murdered entire household of our friends just across the road, 14 people. Some of them were our schoolmates. So one can ask, why did they have to be killed so savagely? Why did they have to die? And why did we survive? There are no answers to that. Each survivor is a unique case to that particular person. And only that person knows what he or she had gone through. Nobody else can ever remotely comprehend that. Now, some people just have not managed to come to terms with their traumatic experiences. And for the rest of their life, nightmares, horrible reliving of these experiences. So, as I said, we didn't talk about it. And then when we came out to Australia, 1948, it was a non-subject. Nobody was interested in the Second World War, in the Holocaust, just as though it hadn't happened. So we ourselves got on with our new life here, and it was just in the background. And in my case, in the mid-1970s, I studied modern European history at the University of Adelaide and specialised on Nazi Germany, seeking explanations. But the truth is, there is no answer. Yes, it was by circumstances a very complex historical period, which was ripe and, of course, significantly, the majority of the world was totally silent, totally indifferent. Indifference only always helps the perpetrators, never the victims.
Yes.
For the victims to be totally abandoned is at times greater pain and physical hurt, because one has this feeling that nobody cares. And of course, very similar period in our history currently, far too many appeasements which never work. Only thing they do is make the ultimate problem more complex and much harder to deal with. With the current instability all around the world and hatred, it's very perilous times for the whole world. And we are literally at a precipice, and doesn't take much to fall down.
Yes.
Now, what's happening, for instance, in the Ukraine, sovereign nation unprovokedly overrun by its much bigger, more powerful neighbor, with the aim of annexing the whole country, if they can do it and get away with it. Now, where is law and order? Where is civilization? Where is the inalienable right of a nation and its totally established and accepted international borders? So we had a few tactics, some assistance with weapons, but the war is still going on. And as with all wars, many, many innocent people suffer. And that's part of every war. Wars are monsters. They're just horrible. Sometimes, of course, afterwards there is a period of peace, but time and time again, somehow there's another war in order to have another peace.
This podcast is brought to you by my weekly newsletter, which is Donna's Balcony Views newsletter. This is a short weekly free newsletter that I write with the theme of building resilience and improving well-being It contains 2 things I've experienced, 2 things I've learnt from others, such as speakers, podcasts, books or articles, and a personal story from someone else about what they do for their resilience or their well-being.
What I love about your newsletter, Donna, is it's really bite-sized and it's extremely easy to read. In a couple of minutes, I've got some great resources and some little tips that I might try. And I read it this morning again, and it just gave me some idea of what I could focus on, some morning questions and some evening questions, and I'm really enjoying it.
If you would like to sign up for my weekly newsletter, my free weekly newsletter, go to my personal website, which is www.donnasbalconyviews.com.au, or on Instagram at Donna's Balcony Views.
So, Andrew, yes, you would have seen the worst of humanity in this turbulent time.
And the best.
Yeah. What would be an example of something individual that you would have seen?
Now, all of us are far more similar than different. All of us have got this dual capability: absolute evil, infinite good, all sorts of possibilities in between. Majority of the people are good. It's only a minority which is evil. And of course, all of us are absolutely the one only unique individual. There's nobody else in the whole world quite like you, quite like I. So within us, we all have this extraordinary innate power of one, which means that we can decide, yes, this is unacceptable, I'm not going to go along with it. I'm going to do my utmost to counter it as best as I can.
As an example, I know you were mentioning to me many Jewish but non-Jewish people also risk their lives to hide Jewish people and help them as well.
Yes. Well, and within my education program at the museum and with the school incursions, there is an emphasis on this, releasing this innate power of one for the students, for the listeners, to harness it and make with that their own contribution towards improvement. Now, on the side of this possibility, during the war in 1944, I was visiting a bootmaker, and the air raid warning siren was sounded, and that, of course, compelled everyone to go down to the nearest air raid shelter. So Stephen, the bootmaker, said, "Quick, come, let's go." Because the actual shelter was in an adjacent building, and deep on the ground, sometimes it was basement, sub-basement, to make it as safe as possible. And as we approached it, there was a giant next to the entrance, well over 2 meter tall. And then he looked down upon me and saw my yellow star, and he said, "He can't come in. He's a dirty, filthy Jew." I don't think that's complimentary at all, no. And so Steve said, he is my friend. He is coming in. Now, 1944, here we are, 2025, and here is Steve with us. And his wonderful, powerful, inspirational action lives on to inspire.
That's
So this is
the power of kindness.
This is the power of one.
Power of kindness.
What a difference one person can make.
Absolutely.
And anybody who hears about Steve becomes a custodian of this great, humble human being. Steve didn't have to do that. He could have just said, well, see you later, you're not allowed to go down. So if the warden had been also simultaneously a Nazi officer, guess what?
Steve would have been probably shot.
But not only did Steve do that, but nightly he listened to the BBC broadcast, which was all clandestine and totally prohibited. And they did this in every language, including Hungarian. And then he wrote the headlines on a blackboard, and at a prearranged time showed it to the Jewish star people across the road from him. Now that was punishable by execution.
He risked his life.
So he was a very, very thoughtful, good, brave human being, because he said within himself, I certainly would not like this to happen to me, but I can do what I can do. And he did that. Now, earlier, I was talking about appeasements. Now, 38, Kristallnacht was a big turning point, and that changed everything because government organized, supported pogrom around Germany and some parts of Austria, with the sole aim was to maim, kill, burn, loot, destroy Jewish life, synagogues, schools, hospitals, just because they happen to be Jewish. That's all. That was the reason. So, by and large, almost the entire world remained silent, remained indifferent. Here in Melbourne, far, far away from Europe, we had a noble indigenous leader, William Cooper. Read about it, very brief report in the Melbourne Argus newspaper, just briefly. The news, what happened in Germany, and William Cooper felt it's totally unacceptable. So he organised a protest at the Melbourne German consulate, requesting Germany to desist from mistreating the Jewish people. Amazing. And significantly, our First People, Indigenous people, had absolutely no rights at all They were not even part of the census. They were known people in the country in which they have thrived for 60,000 years. So that's the power of one. Power of one, you can look at the evil like Hitler, Stalin, currently Putin, and so it goes. Or you can look at Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, or William Cooper, one person each time. So this is what we're working towards for individuals to realize that every person has got this extraordinary potential.
And I think when that it's in the most difficult of times that this potential can come out the most. I really like also that example that we spoke about where when everyone had to wear the Star of David in the country of Denmark, the people said, no, this isn't acceptable. And so everyone started wearing the Star of David. And I think, if you have individuals, the power of one, but if there's everyone collectively does that, then that becomes, a whole country.
In Denmark, that was inspired by the king.
Yes.
And so, yes, we're starting off with, again, the power of one, the king, but it doesn't have to be a king. And they only country really in Europe which succeeded in saving and transporting across the ocean to Sweden almost the entire Jewish population. The only other country in Europe was Bulgaria, which stood up against the Germans and said, no, yes, we are a Muslim nation. These are Jewish people. We have lived together in harmony, and this is how we're going to continue to live.
Andrew, with your mission, and obviously, you've been talking very strongly about this power of one as well. And have you got any final messages for people? You've set up this incredible Holocaust museum in Adelaide, which is currently going through major renovations and extensions, and will be open up in August 2025. So we'll put some information about that in the show notes so people can donate. Hopefully if they come to Adelaide, they can visit and learn so much about this really important history. So are there any other final messages you want to give to individuals about what's happened to you? And obviously it's not that easy sharing what's happened to you in the past, but I know that you do it because you've got such a mission and a vision of wanting people to know and to learn from the mistakes of the past. And your mission is is a better, fairer, and more compassionate world.
Yes, essentially, I think there are two areas. One is interfaith collaboration, and the other one is education. And through these, we can work towards improving the world. We should be prepared to be upstanders and not bystanders, and not be indifferent because it's not happening to us. And of course, sometimes these people realize too late, and they no longer in much of a position to do anything because the evils have caught up with them. And then, of course, they are potentially become victims themselves. And that is why it's so vital not to be indifferent. And if we experience actions which are unacceptable to ourselves, wouldn't like it to happen to ourselves, then it's time to be upstanding.
Even if it's frightening to do so, it's so much better to do something, isn't it?
In a very, very brief sentence, don't do anything what you wouldn't like happen to you, and treat everybody the way you yourself wish to be treated. Now, these two precepts really sum up everything, because if you follow those, it covers everything else. One thing we haven't talked about is art and its extraordinary importance, and communication still have extraordinary works from eyewitnesses who perished. We have art from biblical times, because art endures, and unless it's destroyed, it lives on, and it communicates, and it transcends all sorts of differences. Doesn't matter about color, race, financial status, education level. Each human being tends to react very much the same way. So it's a wonderful form of communication. During the Second World War, art has played an enormous role in our survival and in recording some of these incredible, incomprehensible, horrific events.
Andrew, I went to the Jewish Museum in Prague many years ago, and there was only something like 6 Jewish children in all of Prague survived, or something like that. But they had a whole room full of the pictures they had drawn in the concentration camps, and the pictures had survived. And there were pictures of people with families with sledding and snowman, and it was very, very moving. And you're so right about art. It's really universal.
Referring to Theresienstadt, which was not far.
Yes.
And had 2 names, Theresen, and then the Germans gave it Theresienstadt. And children there made some enormous contribution just by drawing, writing poems, and one of them stands out. There be no more butterflies. It's a very, very famous one by one of the little children. And again, this illustrates this power of art, and then the historical importance in recording events. And lives on.
Absolutely.
The message today.
Absolutely. I think that's a great note to finish on. We're actually sitting in Andrew's beautiful studio, surrounded by art, and thank you so much.
And just one more sentence.
Yes.
Yes, I have succeeded in establishing the museum against all odds, and we did get initially a federal grant for the physical building project, which will triple the floor space, but we haven't got any money for the fitting out, which will be hundreds of thousands of dollars, for which we are doing our best to raise donations. So, having established that, my next dream vision is for compassion, not just tolerance, not just tolerating, but going on a higher level beyond that through compassion. And as I remark a number of times, treat everyone the way yourself wish to be treated.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for your time today and for sharing your very powerful stories. And it's an honour. And thank you very much. We'll put all of the information about
the things that
the museum in the show notes.
Gosh, Donna, just listening to Andrew and, the simplicity of the power of one, it almost seems too simple. But when I think about how we're often overwhelmed and in a world where there's so much coming at us all the time, I just really love that reminder of just what's the one thing.
Exactly. And we had lunch together after we recorded the podcast, and we were talking about how I'd visited the house of Anne Frank in the Netherlands, and she was a young girl who was one of 6 million people executed during World War II, the Jewish people. But because she decided to record her thoughts, her stories, and what happened to her, that book has become one of the most read books of all time, most loved books, and has had such an impact on so many people. And he said, yes, that is the power of one, and you just don't know an individual positive action that you take, what the positive impact may be.
I was also wondering if he was only going to feed you one thing for lunch.
Well, he's such an extraordinary person, 92 years old, up and down his very steep spiral staircase without any troubles, a very steep driveway. And, he even had homegrown capsicums that he served for lunch with many other delights.
Sounds gorgeous.
Thanks.
We hope you've loved today's episode. We always enjoy bringing these to you. We'd love to grow the podcast, and one of the ways that we can do that is to ask you to like us, to follow us, to give us a review, but also just to share it with your friends and family.